I bid you all good morning, good evening, and good night wherever you may be watching this transmission. Guys, I got a really important article I want to share with you guys, break it down, and discuss what's happening. And it's from our friends over at Zero Hedge, believe it or not. And the article is called Consumer Spending Will Not Rebound, and here is why. This is so important because the stock market looks like it's making a comeback. It is looking like it's making a big comeback, right? But is consumer spending going to make a comeback? Well, we'll look at that in a second. Guys, please, article scan, please. Don't forget to set your reminders for trends in the housing market here. Set your reminders right here. We will be doing a Mike in the Night Consumer Spending Rebound edition this Saturday on consumer spending and rebounding. What sectors look like may do well because potential investing and whatnot. What's going to happen in the markets with consumer spending and how it's affected and propped up our GDP and our current market. So it's kind of important. We're going to talk about that. And don't forget to join us on Mike in the Night here. This is on June 30th. This is Mike in the Night, the future of food. And then we have one here for mental health and suicide on July 6th. This one's kind of important because a lot of people are being affected to what's happening with this whole COVID, right? Okay, guys, so here's the article here. So here it is. It's kind of important. It's a well-written article. I do have my notes here with me, too. I've been taking notes. And before I kick it off, I'm honestly going to wholeheartedly think... I'm going to tell you what I think it is, okay, guys? People are... especially the homeowners, okay? Homeowners aren't tapping into their homes like ATM machines like they were. Banks aren't giving out money as easy it was before. People don't have a job. Quite a few people don't have a job. Let me reword that, right? Quite a few people don't have a job, so they can't qualify and secure financing. What happens when that happens? Well, a lot happens because you don't qualify for a lot of the stuff that's out there. There are tools, there are programs to help you out. So here it is. Consumer spending will not rebound, and here is why. I'm going to article scan this one. This one's kind of funny. There's a sign here. It must be in Chinese. It says, carefully fall into the cliff. So there it is. I love Zero Hedge and our friend over there, Tyler Durden, who puts up some of the very informative articles and hits them out of the park. And they're hitting it out of the park with this one. There are two structural reasons why consumer spending will not rebound, no matter how open the economy may be. Virtually everyone who glances at headlines knows the global economy is lurching into either a deep recession or a full-blown depression, depending on definitions one is using. Everyone also knows the stock market has roared back as if nothing has happened. Right there, he says it right there. Now, here it is, guys. I took a note here. Now, I think what's happening in a grand scale, so this is a grand scale, okay? This is like a big scale of things. The money printing and all this stuff that the QE, bailouts, bail-ins, whatever they're doing, this is shown to prove that it brings down the productive entities that produce. So what's happening is they're propping up and keeping up entities that have zero value on the open market, literally have no value on the open market, with a lot of this junk ETF. And it's actually bringing down companies that actually produce, companies that actually are out there, right? And in my opinion, it is a mission to replace the productive economy of wage earners with virtual assets of cookbooks and phony statistics. So, got my notebook here with notes, and let's go back over to article scan, please. Here we go. While most financial pundits have accepted the V-shaped recovery is not possible, and few, if any, observers have discussed two factors that will cause consumer spending to crash harder than generally expected. Remember, consumption is a huge part of the GDP in anywhere in the Commonwealth, but we are not producing that stuff that we're consuming, and that's another problem, and that's another basket of problems, right? The top 10% of households account for about half of the consumer spending, and these are the households that will be most affected by a sharp drop in assets, small businesses' income, and the shrinking of heretofore safe white-collar jobs in the higher education, healthcare, finance, etc. So here it is. There's the top 10%. It's inverting with the bottom 90% here on this graph. Very important because look at it. Look at it from the 1980s when things were just, passing along. Reagan administration. Jimmy Carter just got out. Reagan's in, and everything's like blooming and seeming that things have the income is somewhat kind of more spread across, where wage earners were making money, people owned properties, people spent money on the weekends, people went on trips. Yeah. In other words, since the top percent own roughly 85% of the non-family home assets, i.e. stocks, bonds, businesses, equity, rental, real estate, the decline in the value of these assets and the decline in the income generated by these assets will hit the top 10%, not the bottom 90% who own a tiny sliver of these assets. Companies are slashing dividends. That's a huge problem too for shareholders, and shareholders start losing confidence. People, don't forget that. Tenants are not paying rent, and family-owned businesses will experience decline in revenues and profits, even those which have yet to feel the consequences. All of these income streams and assets are owned by the top 10%, and so all these declines in wealth and income will be concentrated on the top 10%. Spending by the top 5% pulls away from the 95%. So here's your recovery chart right here, really well drawn out. There's your recovery chart, there's your top 5%. Spending by the 95% has stagnated in the recovery, in quotations, since the 2009, while spending of the top 5% has soared. And I took a note for that. I took a note for that, guys, because let's go back. Let's go back, guys, if that's okay, to Basic Business 101. I brought this up on Mike in the Night Live. I had a few callers in. And it's back to Business 101, nothing new. You create a supply. So basically you go out there, you create some sort of supply, right? You're in an economy, a capitalistic economy. You create a supply. You create a cell phone protector. You create a new set of sunglasses that does something that's never happened before, right? Then hopefully you will see the demand. What's been happening lately, especially with the money printing and all the garbage that are buying, all the junk that they're buying and stuff, and basically putting households in middle class, second and third down the list, when it comes to the importance of consuming, they are putting the demand out there first before the supply. And that's just basic business 101. So we're going against everything that we were taught in the school, everything we were taught in school, everything that we were projected to kind of follow once we got out of high school and college and went into the business stream of things. Everything you learned, nothing applied. Why? Because of the smoke and mirrors, right? Number 2, the majority of wealth owned by the top 10% households is held by people 50 years of age or older. And this older cohort that owns most of the wealth and income streams generated by wealth are more at risk of COVID than younger people. Surveys have found that people who feel more at risk are much less inclined to start going back to restaurants, musical events, etc., or going on cruises and airline flights. This means that people that have the money to spend it aren't going out to spend the money. This is a huge deal. So you're cutting out people that are basically the ones that are going to make the difference, right? It's important to note that risk is an internal assessment. Thus, the economy can be completely open again, but people feel cautious, won't resume their old spending habits, and there is no way to force them to do so. Article scan, please. The data strongly suggests elderly people and those with metabolic issues, obesity, high levels of sugar or cholesterol, and high blood pressure are the greater risk than healthier people. Vitamin D and zinc deficiencies may also play a role, as well as general immune response. I recently saw a statistic that only 15% of the American populace is metabolically healthy. What? Whoa. Whoa! I recently saw a statistic that only 15% of the American populace is metabolically healthy. Wow, we're gonna have to do a whole Mike in the Night show about that. Holy crap. The point here is that the sense of heightened risk is sensible for the great many people, and since the owners of most of the wealth are older, this caution will have outsized impacts on consumer spending. Again, combine with the shrinking wealth income of the top 10%, and you get a double whammy reduction in consumption. And consumption plays a huge part of the GDP. You guys know this, all right? It's also instructive to gauge the enormous asymmetry in which is the top 10% spend on services compared to the bottom 90%. The bottom 90% may get their hair or nails done and have the oil changed in their car, but typically can't afford or don't need all the services routinely engaged by the top 10%. So, like flying on a flight, oh, I'm going to take the first class, thank you. I pay the extra $3,000 so I don't sit next to a guy who's going to talk about his dog for 4 hours. So that the people do that, right? Dog walkers, CPRAs, tax accountant, attendants for elderly parents, piano patio lessons. Yeah, let's get a patio lesson tonight, guys. No, piano lessons and other tutoring for children, fitness trainers, career counselors, and landscaping designers, and so on. The list is practically endless. Once the top 10% are forced to tighten their belts, it won't be Walmart sales that are hit up. It will be millions of service providers who depend solely on the top 10% or 5% for virtually all their income. So here it is, guys. Important graph to take a look at. Take a glance here if you're working on the side. 10% of U.S. population own 84% of all stocks held by households. Percent of total investment assets held by wealth distribution. So here it is, guys, broken down. Business equity, wow. Then you got stocks directly or indirectly owned. So you got the bottom 19%, 90% owning 16% of it, and then non-home real estate. So there it is. There is your breakdown there. Really well-written article. I kind of wanted to put this out there on a pedestal, guys. So here it is, guys. I know this sounds like a flash in the pan type of thing where I've said before that banks and corporate companies binge on a lot of lifelines to stay afloat. And I think a lot of the lifelines and these entities that are binging to stay afloat don't obviously appeal to the bottom 90%. That's another problem there. So you know what I'm saying? I hope you know what I'm saying. Okay, all the professions that only served up to 10% will be decimated, as they are inessential. Sorry, guys, I have never used that word in a long time. They are all inessential. Virtually every one of these tasks can be canceled, put off into the future, or performed by a household if push comes to shove financially. The arts and performing arts that depend on almost entirely on costly ticket sales to the wealthy and donations from the top 5% will also be decimated. If you attend the symphony, ballet, opera, you know that 90% of the audience is over 60, the very cohort that will now hesitate to spend lavishly or attend the crowded performance. Dress up like $1 million trooper, trying hard to look like Gary Cooper. That's not going to happen, and spend lavishly. Based on my admittedly informal observations, I think it's fair assessment to say that a great many top 10% of households are in denial about the financial tsunami. That's pretty... top 10% of households are in denial. I would say a little bit higher than that, but that's okay. And that's about to hit them. Since they weren't furloughed like the lower income workers, they have a delusional faith their incomes, businesses, wealth will survive that depression intact. So not the top 10%, but the top 10% followed by the 15 to 20% of middle class that still is in existence that's not over 50, right? So there's a small percentage, but a lot of them still do think that too, right? They are looking at the water receding from the bay, leaving all the fish flip-flopping on the seabed and reckoning that that's the worst that will happen. They don't yet understand the tsunami that is about to roar ashore is not yet visible. The financial wave has yet hit them, but when it does, they will find, and this is what they will find, people, their unearned/investment income will drop. Again, dividends getting slashed. I have some dividend stocks. I sold them, and then I rebought them now at the bottom, or semi-bottom. If there's going to be another bottom, comment below and let me know when it's going to happen, when you think. Number 2, tax hikes will be aimed exclusively at the top 10%, further eroding their income. So that's another major issue we're looking at here, guys. Further eroding their income. Their services weren't as essential or in demand as they assumed because they assumed the top 10% that make up the bulk of their customers would resume spending freely. So then, guys, remember, you got people that like to restore cars, people that do all kind of these hobbies and activities, or spent $2,000 going on a golfing trip for like a day, and they spend 2-3 large. That's going to stop, guys. Their assets will decline in value as only buyers are the top 10% of households, and these declines in the wealthy and income will create a self-reinforcing downward spiral. Back to graph here, article scan, let's get to this graph. If assets will lose 10 trillion in value, virtually all of this will come out of the accounts of the top 10%. If investments and businesses and incomes decline by 1 trillion, virtually all of this will come out of the incomes of the top 10%. So remember, the top 10% are the ones that got all the breaks. The top 10% are the ones that got all the better, deal when it came to doing their taxes or expending or covering their capital gains, right? Oh, okay, so I'm going to buy a boat, I'm going to loophole it through this company, and then put it through this corporation, and then allowing me to put it against my capital gains, so I don't pay tax again this year. Woo! And we get a boat! So, yeah, those days are over, guys. So here it is. For richer or poorer, average family income, excluding capital gains, adjusted for inflation. Okay, I'm sorry, it's excluding capital gain. I'm sorry. I'm always quick to throw in the capital gains in there. I'm sorry. So here it is, guys. There's the percentage. This is from the Wall Street Journal. So this is from change from 2002. And you see this, obviously, what happened in 2002 to 2012. And look at the gaps here. Wow. Look at the changes too, eh? Wow. 76.2% right here at the top here. This is from, again, from the Wall Street Journal, for richer or poorer. Okay, in summary, the vast majority of spending by the bottom 90% isn't discretionary. It's mostly serving debt, student loans. Student loans fiasco. We got to do a mic of the night on student loans, destruction, and what's happening with your student loans. We got to do a mic of the night, and we need to get call-ins on that. You need to call into the show and tell us your student loan fiasco and what's happening. Mortgages, auto truck loans, credit cards, etc. Credit cards. And essentials, food, rent, utilities, etc., with modest discretionary spending on fast food and cheap goods. Guys, remember Mike of the Night like 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago? We did a whole thing about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs with needs and wants. We're getting into more wants. We got into more wants, especially the homeowners that were overly leveraged, and we're just keeping on spending and buying things to keep up with the Joneses. In contrast, the top 10% spending, almost half of all consumer spending, has supported the vast number of services, businesses, jobs, arts, organizations, etc., entities that receive very little of their revenues from the bottom 90%. As the top 10%'s income crashes, so will the discretionary spending. The older the wealthy household, the more likely they will hesitate to spend, as their nest egg is crushed, and their caution about crowds indoors. So I won't be seeing any of these people at an AC/DC concert, that's for sure. I'm still 42. I mean, I'm up there. I'm getting old. These dynamics are underappreciated in my view, and so the majority of media, commentators, and the top 10% themselves are unprepared for the asymmetric impacts on their own wealth, income, livelihood that will sweep ashore later this year. So there it is there. And there's books here that they recommend, guys. Go to Article Scan. My recent books, Will You Be Richer or Poorer? Pathfinding Our Destiny. The Adventures of the Consulting Philosopher. Money and Work Unchained. Sorry, guys. This trend reversal is the top 10% of spending, has been building for some time. Early warning signs of a recession. High-wage workers are spending less. The trend, this is in quotations here, the trend is noteworthy because the top 10% of households by income make up nearly half of all consumption. Again, half of all consumption. Guys, I wanted to share this with you guys. I really wanted to put this out there because this is a big deal. This is a huge deal, and I just read it and I explained it to you guys. So, guys, if you can, don't forget to get over to the Article Scan, please. Get over to Trends in the Housing Market this Wednesday. We're going to be talking about the new financial future. Then we got Mike in the Night, Consumer Spending Rebound. We're going to be talking about this because people don't understand how important this is to the livelihood of the lower 90%. Because without the 10% consuming and spending, the lower 90% is going to have a tough time catching. And then with the upper 10% getting hit by this tsunami, we're going to be looking at a lot of households starting to sell off some stock to keep up with the Joneses, right? Trends in the housing market, sketchy deals. Don't forget to join that one and set your reminder. And Mike in the Night, the future of food. Yeah, where's food headed? What's going to happen? Guys, don't forget to tune in, support the channel, be part of the channel. If you want to share this video, please go ahead. We are the worst performing YouTube channel in the history of YouTube. I'm not making that up. It is true. 4,300 videos, and I've got 800 of them deleted. With nobody knows this channel is in existence. Go against the platform and share this video and get this out there because this is very important information. Thank you, Better Dwelling, for giving us this Better Dwelling. Thank you, Zero Hedge, Tyler Durden, my man, for giving us this information. And pass it along as you feel of its importance. Thanks for watching, guys. Mike Martins here. Thank you very much.